Okay, folks, we're going to have a little fun here. This is going to be tips on producing better fake news. Because, see, people send me these fake news links. And I end up just laughing at them because they act like they're such a big deal. And in reality, they're not. They're actually kind of childish. Like I said, there was one, they said, oh, here's this video that shows how horrible and dangerous and mean and awful and terrible Tommy Robinson is. And all it was is, they heard him say, oh, the camera's off, oh, I'd like to punch somebody. Okay. And then another video was somebody yelling at well, I guess it was must have been one of Tommy Robinson's friends yelling at some poor Antifa member. That's why they're called snowflakes. They are violent. They're called spewing their potty language and everything. And if you raise your voice to them, they're like, oh, you're so mean. You're so bigoted. You're so hateful. You raised your voice. Oh. That's why they're snowflakes. But anyway, so yes, and the bottom line is, I think all of us, especially in the privacy of our own homes, we've probably all gotten mad at people from time to time, and we all probably say something like we'd like to punch somebody. We do. That is just life, and that doesn't mean a thing. All right. First thing, if you're trying to produce some fake news that people would take seriously. All right. No swearing. It's not professional. They won't think you're professional. And you'll be careful of your grammar and your spelling. And make sure you do a professional job. Get your editing out there. And don't let the tone of your article or your video be bigoted, like says, oh, if you don't think like me, you should be kicked into the ocean right now. No. You don't use somebody that is sounding really nasty and mean and hateful, you know? You just don't do that, because then that's how they come across, and no one believes you. Alright, don't use irrelevant facts. Like, don't say, okay, we don't like Tommy Robinson because we found his neighbor had a brothel in his basement, and his second cousin, stole a watch for a jewelry store. Or say, oh, what about all the things going on in America? You're changing the subjects, you know. Or say, oh, what about his haircut? It looks terrible. Makes him look like a mean old thug. That's changing the subject. And that's irrelevant facts. You know, commenting on their eyes, the way their eyes are set in their head, their haircut, you know, their jacket. Like I said, you don't know if he got his jacket at the Goodwill and it used to be expensive, but somebody tossed it, and yeah, you don't know. Could have been a Goodwill jacket. You get pretty fancy stuff at Goodwill sometimes. So that could be disputed, and therefore, but see, the trolls in the UK are just like the ones in the US. They try to grab onto any little itsy bitsy straw, any little thread of negativity to blow it up. Because just like saying, oh, Trump has orange hair and he has a scowling face. Ooh. Yeah, you know, see, that's ridiculous, and they're not credible. They're just playing games. That's why we call them fake news. All right, yeah. Don't use old news, like the story about Tommy Robinson and the EDL. It's from 6 years ago. That's really not relevant. So basically whatever the current EDL members do is not any of his responsibility. It's like I said, it's like if I went to a certain church 5 years ago, and then someone in the church got busted for drugs or for sex or something. I was like, hey, you can't blame me for that. Say, I went there 5 years ago. I haven't been there 5 years. I'm not responsible for whatever happens. See, it's that kind of thing. Alright. Yes, don't change the subject. No spelling grammar. Yeah, don't major on minors, like the jacket or haircut or something. Okay, don't use overblown language. Like, don't sound too dramatic. No, overblown language, no, do not be too dramatic. I'm a trained actor, so I know about being dramatic. Because, yes, these guys, get on YouTube and they start to emote. You know, they're like, oh, and that Tommy Robinson, look at his face, and the way his mouth curls up in a sneer, and his meanness just seems to ooze from every pore, and That is so childish and so fake. You know, you've got to stop that. So none of that. Those are your tips. So I hope you wrote them down. Maybe I'll add them in the description box just to be nice to you. This is your Christmas present, my little trolls. Okay, before we go, I'm going to give you one more little lesson. Okay. And this will be reporting a news story. Well, to report it, well, it's a fake news story, but a way to report it like the way you usually report it, which is obviously dumb, and the way that you would report it if you want someone to think you are telling the truth. But also you could probably watch, the American television stations, like CNN and MSNBC, because they're pretty good at lying with a straight face and with a credible attitude. They can say the most ridiculous things and act like it's the gospel truth. And that's what you need, trolls, when you produce your fake news. You need to be able to keep a straight face, sound serious, sound dignified. Dignity is important. Dignity and class when you're trying to convince somebody of your fake news. Okay, so let's say you're going to put on a fake news story about Tommy Robinson walking through Hyde Park. And then there was also an immigrant lady and her little toddler walking through the park too. And you'll say that whenever he saw them, he went to the other side of this other sidewalk and wouldn't speak to them. And whenever the little child tripped, he turned and laughed. Okay, there's your fake news story. Now and so isn't he a mean, racist, bigot, all that jazz. All right, so here would be how the fake news people currently would handle that story. All right. It was a beautiful day. The sun was shining. The world was happy and bright. And a nice, sweet immigrant lady was walking down the sidewalk in Hyde Park with her little toddler by her side. And then our news reporter saw that infamous Tommy Robinson. And immediately the sun went under a cloud and it began to get dark in the sky. And then we watched as that terrible Tommy Robinson looked. He looked at that woman. He gave her the evil eye. Oh, he gave her the evil eye. Of course, bad spelling and bad grammar in here. Gave her the evil eye. And after he gave her the evil eye, then he went to the other sidewalk. And that just shows how terrible he is in his hatred and his meanness and his terribleness. And oh boy, he's awful. And then what happened after that? Oh, we can't tell you, because he turned. The little kid tripped and fell over. And then we saw his mean, pugnacious thug face burst into laughter. And then the poor immigrant woman began to cry. And it's all because of that mean, vicious, terrible, wicked Tommy Robinson. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed the dramatics. Anyway, that is an illustration of how the current trolls produce their fake news. It's overblown, overly dramatic, just ridiculous situation, majoring on the minors, every little curl of the lip, every little nod of the head, every little thing. They just fabricate, and plus it's a ridiculous situation to begin with, that one is not even worthy of being on the news. But, like I said, they grasp at straws to try to criticize people they don't like. That is the left. Alright, now I'm going to try to repeat the same story in a way that people might consider to be credible. If it wasn't so ridiculous, but the way the CNN reporters would report it. And sound like I'm believable, honest, trustworthy, and just want the best for the public. All right. Another news story we have for you tonight is the story of how Tommy Robinson is putting down immigrants. One of our news anchors happened to see him in the park today, in Hyde Park. There's this woman there with her child. They were walking down the sidewalk, minding their own business. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this man, he came out. And this man, I call Tommy Robinson, the one who's the thug, the one who's been in jail multiple times for multiple things, and everybody knows he's just a sad character. Belongs in behind bars. Anyway, this man, as soon as he put an eye on the poor woman, he raced to the other sidewalk. And see, now this brings us back to the days of segregation. Remember in the old South, when the blacks and whites were not allowed to walk on one sidewalk, same sidewalk together, for fear of a mob. So here we have Tommy Robinson resurrecting this old class hatred, this old race hatred, and just seeing a poor woman and her baby in the park. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, he walked past on the other sidewalk. Then the poor little child fell down. And instead of going to help the woman and help that little child up, you know what he did? He just stood there and laughed. He just laughed. Ha ha ha. He just wants to see the immigrants suffer. And that's why he's just a bad man. He's just got to be behind bars. It's just necessary. Necessary to save England. Necessary to save the future. And just necessary to save the Queen. That's why we've got to put that man behind bars. Because we can't have this mean spirit just going all through Britain. It's got to stop. I implore you, join me signing a petition to put him behind bars. This has been your News Nightly. Alright, so you see, there's really a great difference between the two newscasts. The one is exactly how these trolls act, is extremely overblown, overdramatic, woo, and everybody immediately recognizes it as fake news, very fake news. But see, if they wanted to produce something that was more credible, they need to underplay, be sophisticated, have some dignity about themselves, and so we won't just immediately laugh at them. I mean, we'll still discount them when we've thought about it for a couple of minutes, because, you know, a story like that is still a frivolous story and doesn't prove anything of substance. But at least the trolls won't embarrass themselves. So we don't want them to embarrass themselves, because then they'll hurt their feelings and then they'll melt like the Wicked Witch of the West. So anyway, this has been kind of a humorous little video and illustration of how to produce a better version of fake news. Okie doke. Happy New Year, everyone. Let freedom ring.